So in 2013, I was diagnosed with invasive multifocal breast cancer, and I was 37 years old. So in order to help me get through this, I started to document everything in a drawing journal. So what I'm about to show you right now is some of these drawings from this journal. And actually in 2015, I received a grant from the Paula Krasner Foundation to help aid with this project. So right now I am transforming the drawings into large-scale relief sculptures. And you can actually, I don't know if everybody looked already, but in the corner behind you, you can see this man playing a guitar, and that's actually the kind of technique I'm using, except that the finishing is like my drawings, like my paintings in this one, and these will be black and white. So the piece I'm working on right here is roughly like 3 by 7 feet, and you can see sort of more also here like the layers, and I use different kind of width of plywood, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 to create this. And I will finish it like this one. This is the only difference is that this piece is just one sheet of plywood that's cut out, and then I have this is a drawing on plywood essentially. So that's what they will be when I'm finished. So at the end of 2012, I was experiencing chest pain. And after 3 or 4 months, I went to the doctor because it didn't want to go away. And he did a heart exam, and he did a breast exam, and everything was normal. And so he said, I'm going to send you to a stress test and see, when they hook you up to this machine and and they, check if you have some issue. But he also recommended to have a mammogram. And I am such a lucky woman that he did that, because otherwise I would not have had a mammogram until 3 years later when I was 40. And things would have looked very different. And so anyway, I went to get my mammogram, and I was called back. And this picture is the second time around. So I was sitting there in the hallway with actually a lot of other women, half naked in our hospital gowns. And it was taking a really long time. It was actually 3 or 4 hours, and we were talking, and we figured out that we were all there because we had abnormal mammograms. And I think it's like 10% of women get called back to do another mammogram, and then it's 8 to 10% of those who have to do a biopsy. And out of those biopsies, it's 80% that are not cancer at all. So it wasn't like, I was not feeling nervous. I was actually thinking, I'm young, I'm 37. The average age of breast cancer is 62 in this country. So anyway, it was a really strange day, because to my left, there was this area that they were renovating, and it was all covered in plastic, and there were all these construction workers going in and out of the area the whole entire time. And I was just, it was very absurd. And then to my right, there was a woman who was talking the entire time, and she was, in the beginning, very friendly and happy and even funny, but then the more time that went on, she became really vocal about what she thought you should do if you had cancer. And so after a while, they had to remove her from the area because she was stressing everyone out. So when they did the mammogram, they also did an ultrasound, and they said that they found this area that looked sort of like a Christmas tree, but it didn't look like a mass. So my doctor said not to worry, it's probably nothing, and come and see me in 3 months. And then all of a sudden I get a message, like I got a letter in the mail to schedule MRI, and I did, and it was the same. It was a really lovely woman who did the mammogram, and she strapped me into the machine, and then she said, okay, so the test will begin shortly, and she left the room. And then it was nothing. I was just laying there for like 30, 40 minutes on my stomach until like the technician opened the door and he was like, what are you doing? Why are you already? He was all confused. And it was like they forgot me in the machine. And so anyway, it was, at the time it was not so funny, but I decided I wanted to change hospital at that moment. And so, unfortunately, at the same time, I found out that they wanted to check out this little Christmas tree area and do a biopsy. So, the new hospital I went to was confusing because it started off confusing because I went there and I was only going to do this one biopsy. But then when I got there, all of a sudden, in the middle of everything, the doctor called in another doctor, and then all of a sudden, I ended up having 2 biopsies done that day. So the days after my biopsy was stressful, but I wasn't really that nervous about it because I thought I would be okay. Everybody told me, you're young. They told me I had fibrocystic breast, like dense breast tissue, and a lot of women, young women, have that in particular, and that can cause false positives. So this one I call the positive and the negative room. So. And you can clearly see, like, I don't want to go into the positive room. I want to go in over here to the negative room because when I went there to get my results, they led me into this room that was way too nice to be like at a hospital. I just felt like it was way too colorful, and you can't see this because it's all gray, but it was really colorful, and it had flowers in there. And also, the one thing that made it strange was this little odd detail right here. It was a one-person tissue box, and of course, it got in handy a few moments later. So anyway, when the doctor came in, she was not alone. She actually had this person with her that was dressed in office clothing. And that was for me, of course, like, what is she doing there? So it didn't take more than maybe a minute, and the doctor said, both of your biopsies came back positive for cancer. I'm so sorry, Anna. And I was just floored. I couldn't believe that. I don't know, what is she saying? What are you saying? It felt like someone just hit me in the stomach, and I was thinking, like, I'm young, I have no family history. They must be mistaking me for someone else. And then all of a sudden I started thinking about how did I even get here? I took the metro, and how am I going to get home? And if I don't get on the metro, I have to call my husband on the phone and tell him over the phone that I have cancer. And I had to call him and tell him. And I just remember this long pause, and then he said, I'm going to come and get you. And I have never, ever felt so good to feel, to see someone, ever. I just wanted to get out of this hospital. I just wanted to get home. And this next image sort of tells everything how I was feeling at the time. Just know. So the days after my diagnosis were really confusing, and I still sort of don't remember exactly what happened, but they did find this third spot in my breast that they thought looked suspicious for cancer. And so they had to do another MRI in the machine. So if that was cancer, I would have to remove the whole breast because of its location. Otherwise, I could just remove the 2 tumors in the surrounding areas. And in the middle of this whole turmoil, I just totally forgot that to even ask for a sedative, and I'm slightly claustrophobic, so I was like freaking out in this long, narrow machine. I don't know if anyone been in one, but... And so by the time I got out of this machine, I almost puked. And the only great thing was that this part turned out to be benign, and I didn't have to remove the whole breast. I could just do the lumpectomy. I could just remove part of the breast. So 1 week after I found out I had cancer, I also found out I had no health insurance. So, because they said it had lapsed, because I had not renewed my papers, and which was really interesting because I had hand-delivered the papers to them. And so I was calling them, and finally this woman answered, and she was just like, I don't know, I can't help you. And I just broke down and started crying, and I was like, what am I going to do? And all of a sudden I hear this man's voice just saying like, Anna, Miss Davis, just come in and see me tomorrow in the office and I will fix this. And you know, somehow he did that. He fixed it. So my stepdaughter, she came to visit me 2 weeks, or just before my surgery, and she took me down to see the cherry blossoms on the mall. It was like early April. And I was just feeling like I was drowning on the inside. I just felt like it was this tornado, and I was just spinning around, and I was numb, and I didn't want to do anything. I just felt, but anyway, it was so good that she took me down there because it was so nice to just look at this ocean of thousands of these beautiful pink flowers. It was overwhelming, and it just felt so good to feel something besides fear, to just, you know, have a good day and not think about cancer. So I've had surgery like twice before this, and I always thought it was sort of scary, especially when they like put you to sleep, when they count down and everything. And so, but this time was like on a different level because I would wake up and find out if the cancer had spread anywhere else in my body and how my situation was looking. So the thought that just kept ringing in my head was, am I going to die? Am I, you know, is this the end? Am I... But I kept thinking that it will be okay somehow. Anyway, this is the first part of the surgery. And so what they had to do was that they had to insert these large wires into my breast by the help of a mammogram machine, because they had to locate exactly where my tumors were, because they couldn't feel it. Thank you. And so you have to imagine this. It's sort of comedic in a way. So I had these wires sticking out and my hospital gown, and then I had to put my coat on top because I had to actually go outside in the middle of like 9 a.m. rush hour downtown and cross the street in order to get to the main hospital. So on the other side of the street, this was waiting for me. So I had to be injected by a radioactive tracer, so they could trace actually where my sentinel lymph nodes were, so they could see if the cancer had spread. That's where it spread first, most likely. And so you get injected 3 times, and it's 3 times of excruciating pain. And maybe it might feel like 3 big wasps right there in that area, in the areola around your nipple. So after I was finished with that, it was time to go to bed, and it was time for surgery. So, sorry. It's really interesting how people react very differently when they find out you have cancer. Some people, they want to shower you with their support, and some people withdraw and they don't know what to do. They feel maybe helpless. I don't know. And some people might not even want to be around a person who's sick. Maybe they feel like for some odd reason it's contagious. Cancer comes with a lot of stigma about, you think about dying, and who wants to think about dying? So I think it's super important to think about the person is going through it and really see what they need to be able to handle everything. So you feel really helpless. You feel trapped. You feel like you just want to escape it all, but you can't, because you can't escape your own body, so you're going to have to deal with it somehow, however. So at the time, I was also crying a lot in the bathtub. I actually did that before I even came here, because, crying in the bathtub and have the water just trickle down your face feels so good, because it feels like the tears and the water just mix into one, and then the tears somehow disappear, and I feel better. And I just remember, right after the first doctor told me I had cancer, I just felt so hopeless. And she said, "Oh no, you're not going to feel like this forever." But at the time, I just felt like, how can I ever feel different? I don't know. But I know now that time does help heal. Like your mind and your body slowly adapts to your new situation, and and I really try to just take one day at a time, just take one thing at a time, not think about everything that could happen. So this is me and my doctor, and it was right after my surgery, and she had good and bad news. So the good news was great news. It was the cancer had not spread anywhere in my body. The bad news was that she wasn't able to remove all the cancerous tissue in my breast. And one of the interesting things I found out was that the small findings that were on the mammogram and on the MRI were actually at least 5 times as large. So they were 5 times larger in real life, the tumors. And also, one of the tumors were only found on the mammogram. The other one, they couldn't even see until the MRI, which indicates that there's a need for MRI screening for women with dense breast tissue. So my doctor said that the better choice would probably be to remove the whole breast, because she had already removed a lot of breast tissue. And maybe I should consider doing a double mastectomy. And in my head, I was just, there's no way. I'm absolutely not doing that. It was not for vanity. It was actually like, I was thinking, if you remove all of this, what about this? Like, what about my arms? If something happened, can I do my work? Can I paint? And so that just kept going on in my head. But she said, don't decide now. Just go and talk to a plastic surgeon and then go over the options and decide. So I've never really thought that I would see myself looking at different implants like teardrop breast, round breast, the different kind of ways of removing and reconstructing my breast. It was really bizarre to me. And the time just kept ticking because I just felt I needed to make a decision. And many people told me that I should just have a mastectomy because of my young age. I had multiple tumors, but that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I opted to do another lumpectomy, and my surgeon did an amazing job, and she got rid of all the cancer. And my breast didn't look that bad after all. It was some battle scars. So after you're diagnosed with cancer, there's so much to do. There's so many things to organize, different hospital, doctors, treatments, you name it, insurance, work, money. And somehow you have to be on top of everything, and you somehow have to be your own spokesperson. So for instance, when it came to chemo or no chemo, my doctor had sent off my little tumors to this test called the Oncotype, where they actually look at the individual tumor to see how likely it is to the cancer to return in somewhere else in your body, and how effective the the chemotherapy would be. And after a lot of discussions and several tests, I decided with my second oncologist that I would not do chemo because it would do more damage than good. So this image is when I visited the first oncologist. So I went into the waiting room, and it was just me. It was a woman nurse, and then it was these 5 elderly gentlemen who were... So anyway, I was sitting there, minding my own business, quiet, and they were having this sort of semi-loud discussion about dying and death and how horrible the treatment was. And until one of them was looking over and thinking, oh, maybe, the young woman over there is here for the same reason we are. So he started to slowly introduce these more positive notes into the conversation. So because of my age, my doctors thought I should do the BRCA test to see if I had this gene that makes me susceptible for breast and ovarian cancer. And to do a genetic test, it can come with a lot of problems because apparently people react very differently to the results. So if you are positive, some people react that they blame their parents or grandparents. Why did you give me this disease? Or they might be fearful that they are living with knowing that they are more susceptible to develop a specific cancer. And at the time, there was only one company that administered this test. And so they had the patent, and it made it very expensive to do it. And a lot of insurance companies did not cover it, and mine did not. But I actually decided to do it. And I got a grant from the Gottlieb Foundation in New York, which is the arts foundation that helps artists in emergency situations, among other things. And my test came back negative. So I think it was more or less 2 weeks after my first surgery, my father-in-law, DeWitt, came to live with us. And we had planned this many months before my sudden diagnosis because he was suffering from advanced Alzheimer's disease. And so when I say that to people, a lot of people react, oh my God, this must have been super hard for you guys. And yes and no. Yes, it was super hard to see his decline, but it was actually good for me to be able to take care of someone and not have to think about all of my own issues. And he was such an amazing man, and unfortunately he passed away this January 28th. He would have been 80 today. It's his birthday. So happy birthday, DeWitt, wherever you are. So during this time, I really tried to do things. I tried to go out and have fun. You know, anything to not think of this damn cancer. So this image is me and my husband, and it's actually during radiation. You can sort of hint maybe the color difference here in the breast, and I'm wearing a compression sleeve because my arm was a little bit swollen. And my husband and my son and my friend Jake, they were there every single day to help lift me up and just encourage me. And, you know, if I didn't want to get out of bed, they somehow made it happen. One thing I've been thinking a lot about lately is to always try to live in the now. And I think you have to be able to stay positive because positivity breeds positivity. Negativity breeds negativity, and I choose to be happy. And I chose at that time to fight for my son, for my husband, for my family and my friends, and of course for myself to survive. And they fought for me, and it's so amazing to have so many people around you that help you, and not everybody has that. And it's a really crucial thing, I think, to really be successful in surviving this. So you ask yourself all the time, like, did I do everything? And I remember I met this woman during radiation treatment in the dressing room, because you go there like 5 times a week for 6.5 weeks. So you get to know the same people. And she had gone through multiple cancers. And she just couldn't understand why didn't I do chemo? She was like really wanted me to get another opinion about that whole situation. And she thought at first, of course, that I had because of my hairdo. That, you know, obviously she must have. And I do get this comment all the time when I go to the hospital that I get, oh, that's so nice, your hair is growing out. And I'm like, well, I guess it's still unusual to have a short, mohawk haircut in this day of age. Anyway, she, like a lot of other people, actually question your decisions all the time. And it's amazing because they don't even know the specifics of your cancer. And they will even go to the people closest to you and tell them what you should or should not do. And it's not okay to do that because it makes you question everything again. Like, did I do everything right? And nobody knows for sure, of course. Like, not even your doctors know for sure. So please don't do that. So I'm still counting the days. I'm still counting pre-cancer and after cancer. And I guess I always will because, you know, it's a lot of hospitals, doctors, and treatments. I think I'm on my 5th oncologist. I'm really hoping that my breast surgeon will not change anytime soon. But it feels like running a marathon after marathon, and sometimes you're asking yourself if you ever will you ever see the finish line? So it costs a lot of money to go through this disease, and a lot of people who go through it needs longer period of time to be able to heal and go through treatment. And your work and your insurance might not cover that. And I was lucky in one regard because I work for myself, so I can decide when I paint and so on. And so I actually threw myself into a grant application and painted and exhibited.
Try now.
No? Am I back on? Where was I? Yeah, so I was doing all of that, and for me, it was an amazing distraction. And not everybody is so lucky that they, have the same situations that I did. And I think there's a need for changing laws and regulation. There's a need for we need universal health care. And we need, as a society, to take care of our citizens, regardless of social status, gender, or sex. So this is me today. And I'm sitting here in the ocean of the medicine I have to take for the next 10 years. And it's 3,655 pills to be exact. And I have maybe 6 years to go. And tamoxifen, the medicine, the side effects vary a lot, but for me it's a neuropathy pain. So all of this area, it feels like you're burning on the inside all the time. And tamoxifen is the only drug that's available for premenopausal women. So if I wanted to take another drug, I would actually have to go to the hospital every month and get my ovaries shut down, or have a hysterectomy and remove everything. And then I could take medicine for menopausal women, which with younger women can lead to that you get osteoporosis. So you also would have to eat bone medicine for the rest of your life. And so for me right now, I feel like that's not even a choice. So I'm going to have to stick with this one that I'm dealing with right now. And even though I live with chronic pain, I am a happy person. I'm very motivated and I work really hard. And actually, if you look around you, most of the work in this room I created after I was diagnosed with cancer, and all of the images I've just shown you. I'm 4.5 years cancer-free, and my work, when I create, is the best painkiller. It actually makes me feel like the pain is sort of in the background. And it lets me focus on what's really important now and focus on my future. Thank you so much. And yeah.